How you doing, Katrina?
I'm very well. How are you?
Yeah, good. Thanks for coming.
Thank you for having me.
Your book, which people can see here, I think, we...
Subtly placed.
Exactly.
Mind you, it might blend into
Exactly.
this yellow sofa.
But it's literally front and centre for a reason,
Yes.
because we bumped into each other at IHR a few months back, and you told me about the book, and I think the people listen to this, people in TA, employer branding, we've got agency folk as well. There's some nuggets definitely to draw from the book. So yeah, let's start off with a bit of for those people who do not know you. I mean, I've known you for
Too long.
like 10, 12 years,
Oh
maybe
my gosh,
longer.
wow.
But
It's
yeah,
been a while.
let's hear a bit about yourself, Katrina.
Sure. So I'm Katrina Collier, obviously. I have been I call it the recruitment profession for about 22 years. I, of course, fell into it because nobody chooses it.
Everyone falls into it.
Actually, no, I've met two people who chose it in 22 years. Quite depressing, isn't it? I've been agency in-house, I've been a trainer, then I was asked to write my first book, which is The Robot Proof Recruiter, which a lot of people know. And then once I did that, I was like, oh, I want to do something different. So I've been doing a lot of design thinking workshops, and I spend most of my time now working with talent acquisition or hiring managers to get them basically communicating better. I mean, that's really what it comes down to.
Yeah.
It's to fix any issues, but it always comes back to that. It's collaboration, communication. The reason I wrote Reboot Hiring to have a second book, which still blows my mind, was I felt like there's only so much you can do to help talent acquisition.
Yep.
I need to talk to the other side. I need to make the case for them. So this book is very much written for leadership.
Okay.
It's like, hand it to your C-suite and it'll make the case for you.
Nice.
And really, because I feel like in the 2020s, they've been pummeled.
Let's talk a bit about that, actually. Yeah. So let's look. So in IHR, you did a bit of a kind of potted history of like the 20s so far, What's been the storm? What has been the context of this decade so far?
I feel like in 2019, talent acquisition was coming into its own, and I would imagine employer branding, recruitment, marketing was as well.
Yeah. Phase of maturity, definitely.
Yeah, it was really like, wow, we're starting to become something. And when you think about it's a new function, sales, marketing, HR personnel, they've all been around a long time, but talent acquisition was kind of new, really, in its current guise. And then you had the plague 5 years ago, boom, the world came to a stop, which meant a lot of the talent acquisition pros and, of course, employer branding and recruiters were fired. Then they were rehired for the overhiring.
Yes, massively, yeah.
Fired again. So I'm now, late 2022, because they'd overhired. So they were then overfiring and laying off again. And then they've kind of been rehired. But I'm sure you know a lot of exceptional TA pros that are out of work because companies are cost cutting in the wrong places. And it's led to quite a less supported function. And in the middle of that, you've had AI come along.
A little matter of AI, yeah.
Yeah. We can do more with less. We can cut costs, rah, rah, rah. And so you've got the C-suite being bombarded with that, their own boards pushing them to do more with less. So you've got a very vulnerable function that's suddenly going, whoa. And a lot of people pleasing as well, because TA pros do not want to be made unemployed in this market. So it's this you've got tech vendors going, we can save you money and you can use fewer people to do these jobs. And TA pros going, oh my God, I don't want to become unemployed. So they're people pleasing, which means they look even more like an admin function, which means they're more likely to get turfed out. So it's this awful chicken and the egg. Yeah, it's not
that fight or flight situation, isn't it? Because there's that natural thing about to go, well, I want to go under the radar because I don't want to lose a job, but
that's how
actually
you're
probably doing yourself a disservice by not doing that.
Yeah. This is the time to really show the value of what the function does. Because most people don't really know. They're like, I'm sorry, what do you do? Oh, you hire people. What is that? They don't even know what that means. They think it's easy.
Yeah, I mean, it's like I banned it about a lot, and we were talking about it just before we started recording, is Gallup come up with some great mass data sets in terms of the impacts of talent on organisations, of course, but disengaged employees resulting in $8 trillion in lost productivity. So it's an absolute crucial strategic business function, isn't it?
Yeah.
But it's not seen that way often.
You also get the issue, like taking it through the productivity. So on top of, I mean, we've discussed this a number of times, and anyone who's heard me speak knows, the problem with talent, well, recruitment, full stop, comes back to the meeting with the manager at the beginning of the process.
Yes.
Everything that goes wrong starts there. And it's the most overlooked part. But there's also another bit that you just sort of alluded to. There's an issue between HR and TA. Of certain size companies, when they sit sort of independently, there's a friction. And to me, it's crazy because if TA brings in better people and HR can then do the fun stuff like helping them stay and developing them instead of performance management.
Yeah.
So it's a bit like, why is there friction there? But I've had TA leaders on the phone in tears because the HRDs or the CPOs are undermining them actively. And you're just like, this is nuts.
What are the signs?
So there's
then?
all these weird people problems.
What are the things like, I won't say kind of red flags, but what are the flags that people need to, when you hear people coming to you going, I'm just distraught. What are the things that people see? What are the things you see which are flags that people should keep out for?
Oh, I mean, it comes back to manager disrespect.
Okay.
So before we get into the HR mode, it's not dissimilar, but it's a disrespect. It's a behaviour. It's an unwillingness to meet to talk about the role. It's give feedback. Everyone has to be chased. Everything's urgent, but then they take forever. All this kind of not understanding. Recruiters play with people's lives and livelihoods.
Yeah.
So it's a really, really important job, and it's also an incredibly hard job because I'm not buying that mug, right? I'm buying a human being to bring them into the company. So that human being doesn't have to go where it's told. So it wants to be treated well. It wants to have its questions answered. There's other people to take into consideration. So it's a really, really hard job.
Yeah.
And then if your manager's undermining you because they're not coming to the table, they're not giving you the information you need, they're not behaving, and it is a behavioural thing, they're not behaving well, it's a problem. But, going back, you mentioned Gallup before, there is a statistic, I think it's something like 82% of managers are accidental.
That's crazy, isn't it? Not surprising,
So,
though.
great engineer, we'll promote them into a role as a manager, we won't support them, and then suddenly they're hiring, and they're like, I don't know what I'm doing. A lot of reboot hiring is about how do you articulate who you need to hire? How do you look forward and go, who do I need? What questions do I need to ask? I've got a whole load of recruiters to give me great questions. Like, how can you ascertain who it is you really need to hire? And can we spend more time on that at the beginning? Partner with the recruiter, and then the process works. But the red flags are they don't want to do that because they probably don't know how. And rather than say, I don't know how, because that's vulnerable, they just fluster.
Yeah.
I know what I'm doing. Just read the job description.
I guess also because of the thing about wanting to kind of go under the radar and not cause a problem is that you kind of, there's this danger of going, yes, okay, because you want to show that you understand what they mean.
Yeah. Recruiters need to be saying, I am going to save you time, money, and hassle.
Yes. Yeah.
If you spend more time with me at the beginning. If we spend an hour and a half even, go all out, really getting to grips with the role, the recruiter can go out to market and the marketers can find, do their piece as well to find the right person. And then they might see 3 people to interview instead of 10, and they're still trying to work out, I know it when I see it. Horror. But because they took the time. But, that recruiters should also be asking really tough questions like, are we going to keep this person in a downturn? Like, do we really need to be hiring this person? And have we looked internally? Who could we promote and backfill? But recruiters won't ask that question again because there's this fear. I imagine if you ask most, and now I'm talking internal, talent acquisition pros, are you concerned of losing your job in this market? They would all go, yep. Because they all know great people. I mean, great people that have been out of work for a year.
Yeah,
6 months. And you just, some of the people I've seen who I just can't believe aren't working. So they won't ask those tough questions. But if they did, the manager would be like, wow, I wasn't expecting that. That's a business question. They're switched on.
Yeah.
Respect. The second that they can get the manager thinking, you've got their respect. So, but there's this fear to overcome. But, you put your head in the sand, I don't know who Chris is. I never see him. What's he do?
It's true. Yeah.
Bye.
It's true.
Wipe him off the spreadsheet. You know, we can save 50K, 100K, whatever they're on. Gone.
It's true. It's like, and also kind of thinking that, well, I'm doing the work, so therefore people know about it.
No.
As well. It's like, yeah, you need to find time.
I think that's the other thing as well. When I was writing that, there's a bit about star hires.
Okay.
So the people that you've hired that came in, that transformed the company, that did an amazing job, that are, you know, a pivotal part of the company.
Yeah.
Recruiters couldn't tell me. I went to my faves, you know, the people I'm like regularly rely on to give me silence. I was like, really? You absolutely need to know them. And then you need to be able to say that. So you're having these meetings with the managers and you're like, oh gosh, you know, X in your team, you know, I hired him. This is what I did to hire that person. I went out to market, I headhunted them. I you know, there was a whole process of wooing them and engaging them and converting them into an actual applicant.
Yeah.
But they don't do that. And again, so the managers think the CVs or resumes float down from the sky because we don't tell them that they don't.
Well, TAs are agents ultimately. You know, look at agents in terms of, you know, sports. You know, they absolutely, you know, make sure that the industry knows that they're responsible for making his part, responsible for that person's success.
Yeah.
And the success to the club and the organisation.
Yeah. But they don't.
You're right, actually.
I think they don't.
Yeah.
They should.
Yeah.
It's like, well, actually, James Ellis posted about this the other day about like they'll praise the sales. That's when TA should go, hi, we hired that person.
Exactly.
Or the recruitment marketer go, I attracted that person in.
Standing on the shoulders of.
Yeah. And what do? We're silent. Like, oh, well, that's great. In our heads, we're like, we know that we brought that person in, but we're not saying it.
It's true.
And if there was ever a time, but I think it's that it's really a time to be digging deep on the resilience, but, you know, the critical thinking to ask great questions, the really active listening, and the showing your value by knowing your star hires, by showing, you know, oh, yeah, look, I know Bob never used to want to spend time with me at the beginning of the process, but he just saved 100 hours. Have you divided up your salary? What's 100 hours worth to you? You know, like make them think, how would you use it if I saved you 100 hours? But the fear to ask those questions, and actually, if I go back, it's also the stuff like that's not taught anymore.
I mean,
actually, that's true. That's not taught anymore.
Has it ever been taught though? I don't know. It's because
Where did I learn it?
but it's down to down to the student rather than the teacher, because you just maybe you're that kind of person who wants to learn that stuff.
Do you know, maybe that's come from my coaching and stuff as I've healed and, done the work on that. Maybe I've got more inquisitive. Do you know? Well, any of my clients obviously learn this stuff.
Well, of course, exactly. And, you know, people who read the book. People who read the book.
Yeah, I mean, there's tons of questions in there. Or the robot-proof recruiter for recruiters. I mean, that I'd like them to just drop. I mean, it's bright yellow for a reason. Just drop it on your C-suite's desk.
Yeah, yeah.
Order it direct to go and land on their desk. Don't even explain.
So, because actually, you're right about when you're at IHR, literally you had the book and you're going, I'm writing this for everybody here. You know,
I didn't write it for me.
But it's of course because you're passionate about what you do.
Yeah.
You literally want to make sure that people can learn from all the things you've learned and learn from people's mistakes and people's challenges and those phone calls where they phone up going, I'm really distressed, you know, about things. So I think it's great you're doing it.
Actually cool.
Yeah, well, that says a lot though about what, you know, the situation they're in.
Yeah, and I also feel as a Gen X who remembers life before the internet really took over, I think it's really important for us to say, this is how you can do it another way. Yeah. Because for people that have grown up and thought, well, I've got LinkedIn Recruiter, that's the only way. Oh, isn't it? Well, no, there's other ways. You know, there's other ways to get to people. Some people used to send pizzas to people with a little note inside saying, do you want a job? Like, you know, the creative stuff that used to go on before we were all so reliant on tech.
Yes.
But it's also the communication and the confidence skills and that critical thinking. I mean, we were taught critical thinking. So I feel like I have a duty to pass it on.
Actually, I was talking to Steve Usher.
Oh, I love Steve.
Yeah, at the
we get to talk every other week.
Oh, do you?
So lovely.
So I noticed that you guys knew each other because he's popped up a few times on LinkedIn.
One of my favourite humans.
But he was speaking about, because he was on the podcast actually when I was in Belgrade, and he was saying how they're hiring for I can't remember the role, but they're hiring for someone. They found out that they were an Arsenal fan.
Right.
So what they did was they bought them tickets
Yeah.
to go and watch a match.
Yeah.
And that's, in the great scheme of things, that costs zero to do.
Yeah.
But that intelligence, emotional intelligence to do that is really important, and that can't be solved by tech,
No.
But
you might find out on somewhere. I mean, it's unlikely that would be on LinkedIn. You'd probably have to go across to Facebook and have a squiff. Not to rule them out, but to find something interesting. I remember when we were first talking, that was the sort of stuff I used to talk about on a sourcing perspective. Like,
social
what
recruiting,
can you find out that you can drop in a conversation, not to rule them out, but to engage better?
Yeah.
Because it's unlikely they're going to put it on LinkedIn, but you go and look at the other sites. Or what are they saying over on Instagram or on that horrible site formerly known as Twitter? What are they chit-chatting about that we can use in conversation to engage them and pull them in closer? But again, it's that thinking to do that. I think it's quite funny because I wrote the book called The Robot Proof Recruiter. So of course everyone thinks I hate technology. No, I don't hate technology. I avidly use it. That's how I got here.
Well,
Use my phone the whole way.
You use social media, you augment it with technology to find things that are going to help you do your job. So
Absolutely.
So if someone say somebody's listening and they're hearing this noise about AI that's coming in. Obviously, we touched on some of this already, but what else would you say as a kind of wrapping up? What else would you say? Because they're faced with this AI is going to be a reality, but how do they make sure it's kind of used in the right way? What kind of things can they say in the meetings and say to their teams?
I think you really want to understand. I mean, I'm not the world's biggest AI expert. There's people out there like Glenn Cathy, for example, to go and follow.
There's technology applied, and it's the application which is really important.
Yeah, and I think it's go test the tools, work out what is. Make sure it's giving great results. One of the things we know about the likes of OpenAI and ChatGPT is that it gives fake results. So make sure that where's the data coming from and what are the results? And go and talk to your peers. What are they using? There's brilliant tools out there, like there's conversational AI, and a lot of people will be like, but if you're doing high volume hiring and people know that they're talking to the conversational AI and it's really well thought through, they can show really great case studies. So I'm thinking of Paradox. They've got great case studies that prove that the technology is helping the recruiters and it's helping the managers. So you're looking for that. And that it's saving time, money and hassle. Like that's what you're really looking for, right? But without destroying the experience for the candidate. So I think sometimes we look too much in the company side and not enough in the candidate side because the candidates all talk. And even in this time where there are people who are struggling to get a job, but if they've got a driver's license and a phone, they can do an Uber and a car, they can do Uber, they can go and do deliveries, they can go and stack shelves in the supermarket, right? People don't have to work at your company. So if you treat them badly, they can say no, even now, even in this market. So I think it's remembering that as well. So, but I think that test and be really curious about what's behind it. And I want that tool to have been created with recruiter input or by a recruiter. I'm really tired of, I had a bad day one day and I'm a developer and so I created a tool. It's like, you've never recruited. You don't understand what it takes. I think that's really important.
Yeah, lovely.
So,
okay.
Super curious.
Yeah, that's finished
with skepticism, I think.
That curiosity side of things, I suppose, what kind of, moving on to the actual finding the right times for conversations and asking for to slow things down. Let's have a conversation. What kind of things can people do, to make sure that people understand that those conversations are valuable? Do they look at the whole process and go, these are absolute crucial times to have these conversations? I don't know.
Well, I mean, again, I still think it's the meeting at the beginning.
Yeah. Okay.
Because if you've got a manager who doesn't really know what they're doing, but they're pretending they know what they're doing, there's ways to get the information out of them without startling them. So to me, it's like you have that meeting or you don't work on the role. And that in itself, for some TA pros, scares them. Like, don't work on the role. Ask them multiple times for the meeting. If they don't, close the requirement on the applicant tracking system.
Yeah.
The manager will, if the role is still alive, will soon react. And you can go, I've asked you 3 times to have a meeting. I'm not here to waste the company's time, money and money. I want to get this right, protect our reputation.
Yeah.
So we're going to have a meeting about the role. And it's like you're telling them this is how we're going to be, not asking. And they're still not coming to the table, then it can't be that important.
Yeah.
But when they do, what you do is, they'll do the usual, it's in the job description. No. How will you know at the end of 12, Steve Levy's question, how will you know at the end of 12 months that you've hired the right person? Start the conversation with a question that's going to floor them.
Yeah.
And they'll be like, oh. And they'll say all this stuff that's not in the job description. You've got them.
Yeah,
they're thinking. So if we can do that, and then you're asking Debbie Easterday's question that's in there. If you were hiring someone you loved, what would you warn them about?
Okay.
Then you get the sales piece, don't you? Oh, well, we do long hours, but this is great. And then you've got that marketing stuff, that salesy stuff to go, this is what we're like. This is what you're coming into. And it's the truth. Because you want people to deselect as well, don't
Give and
you?
get, isn't it? Brian Adam and his give and get.
Yeah. So it's like start that at the beginning, really thoroughly. Then you know who you're looking for. You can devise great interview questions. Then it's a fair process. And you can also, the biggest one that doesn't get asked, pain points.
Okay.
What happens while the role's open? What's going on? So do you have a flight risk in the team? Is there a cost to the bottom line? Is there a project that's going to fall? You need to find out what the pain is. If you don't find that out, you can't chase your manager. You can't get feedback. You can't push people through the process. As soon as you know that, you've got them. Wow, it sounds like this is really serious then. Right, I'm going to get your CVs on Monday. Can you come back to me on Wednesday? Let's put a time in your diary now. Great. And when do you need them to start? Let's work it backwards. Yeah. Okay, so we need to interview there. We need to hire them there because they've got a 2-month notice period or whatever. And you start acting like that, they're going to go, wow, I really like this person. I trust them with my role.
Right.
So, and it's so much more than a job description.
Well, actually, then it's a reason, assuming the reason why there is that thing about I don't have time and it's in the job description is because of the problems that will be brought up by having the conversations in the first place. So
yeah, and it will be like usually they're down a person, which means they're taking it on or the team's taking it on. They're working long hours. Maybe their manager's annoyed with them. Maybe they've got a promotion on the line. There will be reasons that they're trying to fob you off and they might know what they're doing.
Yeah.
Which I do think is, unfortunately, due to a lack of training.
Yeah, absolutely.
A lot of them.
Goodness, that's a wider chat, but I think this is it's been great chatting with you. What we'll make sure is put loads of links in for that book.
For the very subtle yellow block that needs to land on their table.
You'll also be, there's some great, some great YouTube videos I'll put in the link as well of you talking about, topics in and around this as well. So
Thank you.
Thanks very much.
You're welcome.
It's been good to chat.
You too.
Stuff.